So we are up to chapter 33, verse 26 of Vezot Haberacha. It states, Ein Kael Yeshurun, Rochev Shemayim Be'ezrecha, Ubagav Aso Shechakim. So there is none like Hashem, Yeshurun. So, meaning to say, Yeshurun is another name for God. Ein Kael Yeshurun, Da'acha Yeshurun. You should know Yeshurun. She'ein Kael b'kol Elokei Ha'amim. B'kol Elohei Ha'amim. There is none like Hashem amongst all the gods of the nations. There's none like Hashem amongst all the gods of the nations. Nor is there rock like your rock. And so there is nobody like Hashem amongst the other nations. He's the rider of heavens at your assistance. And in his majesty disguise. What does it mean? Rashi says, Hu Oso Eloha. The rider of heavens is that God. Shebe Ezrecha was at your assistance. And in his majesty, is the rider of the skies. Next verse, verse 27. Me'ona Elokei Kedem. Umitachas Zroo Soam. Vayigarish Mipanecha Oyev. Vayomer Hashmid. Very, very difficult verse to understand. Mona means a dwelling place. And Elokei Kedem. And a dwelling place of the God, of the ancient God. Rashi says, Ma'on, as an abode. These are the skies for the God of old. God preceded all the gods. He chose the skies for his dwelling place. And beneath his dwelling place, all the mighty ones dwell. And he sent away from you the enemy, and he said to destroy it. What does that mean? Underneath the arms of the world. Sichon v'Og u'malchei Canaan. This refers to Sichon and Og, the kings of the Canaan. By the way, was John still out there, Bill? Let's see the messenger. Okay. Sichon and Og are the kings of Canaan. Shayu tokfo v'raso shalom, were the power and the strength. V'fikach al karcham yachradu v'yazu. Therefore, without choice, they tremble and they sweat. V'kocham chalash v'panav, and their strength weakens before him. Ki lo'olam emasa gavoa al namuch. For the dread of the ones in the high position is always cast upon the one who is low. When it refers to this Ro'os Olam, that refers to Sichon and Og, who are underneath him. And they were the most powerful forces in the world. And God made them tremble and sweat. And they weaken before God. Because the fear of the one in the high is always cast upon the one who is low.
But he had to strengthen Sichon's heart.
Right. That's a good question. I don't know. That's a good question. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Okay. Hold on one second.
No.
What? What'd you say?
The little kids, they're in the street.
No, they're okay. It's in the backyard. Okay, next pasuk says, "Vayishkon Yisrael betach." Israel shall dwell securely. Badad in Yaakov, solitarily like Jacob. Our Eretz Dagamati Rosh, in a land of grain and wine. Av Shamav Yarfu Tal. Also his heavens shall drip with dew. It's a very, very difficult pasuk. Also, all these verses are very hard to understand. So Israel will dwell alone and securely. Israel Yishkon Betach Badad. Ein Yaakov, the likeness of Jacob, in the land of Dagan and Tirosh, grain and wine. Also his heavens will dip dew. What does this mean? Rashi says, Kol Yachid v'Yachid, every individual, Ish Tachas Kafno, each man is underneath his grapevine, Betachas Teinaso, and under his fig tree, Mefuzarin are scattered. Vein Tzrichin Etasef, they don't need to band to live together because of the enemy. So the Jewish people will be able to live by themselves. Ein Yaakov, like Jacob. Kamo ve'eno ke'ena b'doach. The word ein means like. Ke'ena bracha shebercham Yaakov, like the blessing which Jacob blessed them.
So what verse?
We're now in verse 28 of chapter 33. Yarfu means it will drip. Yatifu. Av shamav yarfu tal. And his heavens shall drip with dew. Av birchatot shel Yitzchak nosefet al birchatot shel Yaakov. The blessing of Isaac is in addition to Jacob's blessing. Vayitenu chai Elokim mital hashamayim. God gave you of the dew of the heavens. Yes.
His heavens drip dew, but why doesn't it say rain?
I'm sorry?
Why dew rather than rain, which is usually.
Why don't they give them a blessing of
I
rain?
mean, rain is.
They do sometimes give a blessings of rain, but dew is also a blessing that's given out. Dew never stops. So it's not, why is it such a blessing to give dew to the bracha of Israel? Everybody gets dew.
Well, that's the word Yarfu, which means plenty.
Drip. Right, there's a lot of dew. Everything needs dew to grow. Dew is essential. You can't grow without the dew. Dew is the moisture in the air. Dew is an indication.
The blessing of Pesach, dew, right?
Pesach, yeah, we say Morid Hatal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Master Baruch Marathon, yeah. So, yeah, that we do the blessing for dew. On Sukkot, we do the blessing for rain. And on Pesach, we do the blessing for dew. In verse 20, I don't know, yeah, that's a very good point to think about the distinction between the blessings for dew and versus blessing for rain. It's a very good point.
There's also a note in the Steinsaltz back on Hatzulu.
Wow, you're holding, Bill.
Contrasts between the beginning of the verse, which refers to harsh rain representing the works of rebuke, and dew representing light pleasant roots. So dew is a little more positive sometimes.
Cool. So the rain can also be a rebuke, but dew can never be a rebuke. Dew can never hurt you, but rain can sometimes hurt you.
And the verse is, my lesson will fall as the rain, my saying will flow like dew.
Right. Yarov kamatar, tizal katal imrasi. Yarov kamatar with the tizal katal imrasi. Right. So dew will always be a blessing, and rain will sometimes be a blessing and sometimes a curse. Rain can rain out a baseball game.
And flood the subways.
Is
in
it
New
a
York.
blessing or a curse when it rains out the game? Depends if you have to be there. Ashrecha Yisrael, mi kamocha, am nosha ba'Hashem. Magen ezrecha, ba'asher cherev gavasecha, v'yikachashu oivecha lach, v'ata al b'mosenu tidroch. He says, fortunate are you, Israel. Who is like you? The people who are saved by God, the shield of your help, and who is the sword of your grandeur, and your enemies will lie to you, and you will trample their high places. Rashi says, Ashrecha Yisrael, fortunate are you, Israel. Achar sheparat lahem habrachos. After Moses listed the blessings to them, he said to them, Mali lefrot lachem. Why should I specify for you? Kol davar, the general matter is, Hakol shalachem, everything is yours. That means to say every blessing is yours. Ashrecha Yisrael, mi kamocha, fortunate Israel, who is like you? Chuascha ba'Hashem, Asheru magen azrecha, who is the shield of your help. Machara gavasecha, the sword of your grandeur. V'yichashu oivecha lach, your enemies will lie to you. Kigona givonim, sheyomru me'eretz rechokah ma'od ba'u avadecha. Your servants come from a very distant land. V'ata b'mosenu tidroch. You will place your feet on the necks of these kings. So when it says your enemies will lie to you, Rashi says that refers to the Givonim, who came from a very distant land and lied. Okay, so now we're up to the last chapter of the Torah.
Their lie was that they said that they came from a far land.
Right, correct. Right, their lie was that they came from a very far land. Now up to the last chapter. Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nevo, Rosh Pisgah, at the height of the summit, at the head of the summit of the height. Asher al Pnei Yericho, facing Jericho. Vayareu Hashem es kol haaretz et hagilad ad Dan, and God showed him the whole land, from Gilad to Dan. Rashi says, Me'arvos Moab al Har Nevo, Kama Malos Ayu. There were many steps. Psan Moshe Psiachas, and Moshe took it in one step. Meaning to say, he knew he was going to die, but he ran. He ran to do his mission. And God showed him the whole land. Ar'eu et kol eretz Yisrael b'shalvata. He showed him the whole land in its tranquility. And the oppressors who were destined to oppress it. Adan, Ar'eu b'nei Dan. He showed him the children of Dan. Ovdim avodah zarah. He showed him the whole land, meaning to say he showed Israel its tranquility, and he showed the people going to oppress it, and then he showed the children of Dan worshiping idolatry. As it says, b'nei Dan es hapesel. So Moshe had a prophetic vision. He was looking towards the future, and he showed him Shimshon. He showed him Shimshon, who was going to save the people. Rashi says, and what else did he show him? Says the pasuk, Veskol Naphtali, Eretz Ephraim, and he showed him all of Naphtali and the land of Ephraim, Menashe. Let's go Eretz Yehuda and all the land of Judah. Ad Ayam Achron, until the final sea. Rashi says, Veskol Naphtali, Herahu Artso, he showed him Naphtali's land. The Shavata b'Churbanah, with its tranquility and destruction. Ver'eu Devoro Barak Kedesh Naphtali, and he showed him Devorah and Barak from Kedesh Naphtali. Nilchamim im Sisra v'Chelosav, doing battle with Sisra and his armies. So he showed him all of Naphtali and the land of Ephraim and Manasseh. What does that mean? Arel arts, and he showed him their land, in its success and its destruction. Ve'ereu Yoshua, and he showed him Joshua. Nelcham and Malchei Canaan, doing battle with the kings of Canaan. Shebami Ephraim. Joshua came. Joshua doing battle with the kings of Canaan. They came from Ephraim and Gidon, Shabbat, Menashe, Nacham, Jav, Amalek. So all these cases, God is showing Moshe their destruction and their success. Let's go Eretz Yehuda and all of Judah. B'Shavatav v'Chorbanah. He showed them Arel Malchus David v'Nitzchonam. He showed them King David's descendants with their success and their victories. Arayam Macharon. Show them all the way until the final sea. Rashi says, Eretz HaMa'arav, the land of the west. V'Shavatav v'Chorbanah. Its tranquility and its destruction. Alternatively, Al Tikri Ayam Acharon, Ela Yom Acharon. Don't read it as the last sea, but the last day. God showed Moshe, God showed Moses at that moment everything that would ever happen to the Jewish people until the dead will be revived. The Esa Negev, we showed him the south. The Esa Kikar, and the plains, Bikat Yericho, the plains of Jericho. Irat Marim at Soar. Yes, Jerry. Question.
In the previous Rashi, what does Hey Yud Mem? I don't have the. I don't see it on the screen, but Rashi gave it a twist.
Rashi says, don't read it as the final sea. It says he shows them until the final sea. Rashi says, don't read it as the final sea, but read it as the Yom Achron. He showed him the end of time.
Where does the final? What does the sea? I don't understand what a final sea.
Don't read it as the Western Sea, the sea that's farthest away, but rather read it as the final day.
I see. The Western Sea was the Mediterranean.
Yes, and in those days they believed that that was the edge of the earth.
Yeah, right. The flat Earth theory. Yes.
Well, they didn't really know about the Atlantic and the Pacific, and the Indian Ocean, and the Suez Canal. They didn't know we had about the Suez Canal. So they were talking about the Yam Acharon, the Mediterranean Sea.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, they must have kept going out, and then at a certain point, they're like, we have to come back. I mean, they went to Italy, they went to Africa.
Yes.
But I guess that before Columbus, they didn't just keep going in the ocean.
Right.
According to the Talmud, Italy wasn't even there yet.
I'm sorry. What did you say, Rabbi Goldman?
That Italy only was established when Solomon married the daughter of the Pharaoh.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, so then they went into the south, and he showed Moshe this. He showed Moshe the south, the plains, the Bikat Yericho, the valley of Jericho, Irat Marim, the city of the dates, the Ad Soar, all the way to Soar. Rashi says that Hanegev Eretz HaDarom, it's the land of the south. Alternatively, Marat Machpelah, what's the Negev? The cave of the Machpelah, as it says, Vayahu Negev, Vayavu Hebron. They went up in the south, they came to Hebron. Vet Hakikar, Shia. Is John out there?
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure he doesn't leave. Tell him he's our center. Tell him 5 minutes. So, and the cave of Machpelah, as it says, Vayahu Negev, they came to Hebron, and the plains, he showed him Shlomo HaMelech. Yitzhak Klei Beit HaMikdash. He showed him God showed him King Shlomo was making clay, taking the clay for the Beit HaMikdash from the plains of the Jordan. Yitzhak HaMelech. The Ma'aveh Adamah, the thick clay. Vayomer Hashem Elav, and God says to him, Zot ha'aretz asher nishpati la'Avraham v'Yitzchak u'Yaakov Emor. So he says, God said to him, this is the land that I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, to your seed I shall give, and I arita cha be'enecha v'shama lo tavor. God said to him, this is the land that I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, to your seed I will give it. And yeah, question, Jerry?
No, I'm sorry.
So he says, and God said to him, this is the land that I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying to your descendants, I will give it. See it with your eyes, v'shama lo tavor. Look at it with your eyes, and do not cross over there to look at it. Rashi says, Le'mor l'zaracha etanana heriticha. Look at it with your eyes. Kidei shetelech v'tomar. So they should go and say to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Shvu shenishba lachem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ki ma. God has fulfilled his oath that he swore to you. As it states, L'kach heratia. Therefore, this is why I've shown it to you. Why is he telling Moshe to look at it? Because he wants Moshe to go to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and promise them. This is what it means. But it's a decree from before me. They shall not cross over. For if we're not so, I would have kept you alive. If we're not so, I would have kept you alive until you would have seen Israel implanted and established on the land. And then you would have gone and told them. Meaning to say, Hashem is saying, look at it so you can, when you go into heaven, you can tell Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that it all is all fulfilled. And now we have the next verse, controversial verse. Vayam Hashem Moshe Eved Hashem Be'eretz Moav al pi Hashem. And Moshe died there, servant of God, in the land of Moab by the mouth of God. So who wrote this verse that Moshe died? So Rashi tells us, what?
Could have written it in advance.
Then it's a liar. Then he's lying when he writes these words. Is Moshe a liar? He's going to say, Moshe
He could have seen it ahead of time. It's a prophet.
could have. That is a possibility. So he wrote it with prophecy. That's one of the answers. Rashi quotes a different aspect. It says, Efshar Moshe Meis, because of Ayamasha Moshe. Is it possible that Moshe died? And he writes there, and Moses died. El Adkan Kosav Moshe. Up until this point, Moshe wrote it. Mikan ve'elach, from this point on, Rabbi Meir. Mikan ve'elach Kosav Yoshua. From this point on, Joshua wrote it. That's the first explanation. Rabbi Meir's,
Whose explanation is that?
that's the Tanakama and Baba Basra. But comes along Rabbi Meir, and Meir says, Efshar Sefer Torah Chaser Kun, Gomer Okecha Sefer Torah Zeh. Moshe tells them, last week's parasha, take this Torah. So how could he have given them the Torah which Joshua wrote? Meaning to say, Moshe gave them the Torah, but it's not a Torah if it doesn't have every word in it. And if you're saying that Joshua wrote these words after Moshe died, and Moshe couldn't have given them the Torah. So therefore, what must we say? Ela HaKadosh Baruch Hu Omer, Moshe Kosev V'Dema. In Vayelach, it says, take this Torah. And it's Vayelach. Yeah, Vayelach, at the end of Vayelach. So So rather, it states, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said it to Moshe, and Moshe wrote it, b'dema. So that here in this Rashi, they translate that as tears, that he wrote it with his tears. He wrote with his tears. Other translations of this is that he wrote it silently. Dema can be silently, and a third explanation that I saw is he wrote it, but it was all mixed up. He didn't know what he was writing. Understand what I'm saying? He wrote it as the letters were down there, and he wrote the letters, and then Joshua formed it into the words. We're discussing, Ben, how can Moshe have written this verse that says that Moshe died? Moshe died.
Saying the letters were all there.
So, yeah, so we said that one explanation was Joshua wrote it, but that's problematic because if Joshua wrote it, it says that then Moshe gave that Joshua wrote after Moshe died, but that can't work because it says in the end of Vayelach that Moshe gave the Torah to everyone. So how could he give out incomplete Torah? So the second explanation in the Gemara is that Moshe wrote a b'dema. So what does b'dema mean? B'dema I offered three explanations. They wrote it here in this Rashi. They translated it as tears. That Moshe wrote it with his tears. Means he wrote it himself. Second explanation is that Moshe wrote it silently. That typically God said to Moshe repeated it. So far, he's supposed to say every word. He says the word and then writes it. But this time Moshe wrote it without saying it. And the third explanation is b'dema means like demai, like mixed up. So God gave him all the letters, and Moshe wrote down the letters for the last 8 verses, but he didn't write down them in the proper order. So he didn't know the meaning. Then Joshua came and pushed them together.
So is the one about tears alluding to the fact that he was crying about his own death, or what was it?
Presumably that he wasn't able to get into the land. All right, well, we'll daven mincha now. And just before we daven mincha, I want to say, everyone's welcome back to